It was supposed to be just another episode of The View. A routine panel, a guest appearance, some political talk. Nothing out of the ordinary. That morning, no one on set, not the hosts, not the crew, not even the audience, had any idea that they were about to witness one of the most unforgettable moments in daytime television. The lights were on, the cameras were rolling, and the stage looked like it always did. But what unfolded over the next hour would turn a simple interview into national drama. The kind that clips go viral for, and people argue about for days. One woman came prepared to share her work. The other came ready to cause a scene. Only one of them would leave with her reputation intact. Rosie O'Donnell was no stranger to the spotlight. Once a household name in television, she had built a career off her bold opinions and loud personality. She was funny, sure, but also fiery, quick to speak, slow to listen. Over the years, she had become known for picking fights on air, clashing with other celebrities, and always making sure her voice was the loudest in the room. Lately, her presence on TV had become more rare, and some would say less relevant. So when she was invited to sit in as a guest host on The View, she saw it as a chance to reclaim some attention, and she wasn't going to let it go to waste. Across from her sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Focused, not here to perform, but to inform. She wasn't interested in ratings or headlines. Her purpose was clear: to explain her new criminal justice reform bill and why it mattered. Jasmine wasn't new to hypershare moments. She had argued cases in courtrooms as a public defender, challenged power in state legislature, and now sat in Congress with a seat on the Judiciary Committee. A Harvard law graduate with a sharp legal mind, she had gained national respect for how she cut through political games and stuck to facts. She wasn't flashy. She didn't need to be. Her record spoke for itself, and maybe that's exactly what bothered Rosie. From the moment they sat down, something felt off. Rosie's body language was tense. Her comments during the break, though, off mic, carried a smug edge, dismissive of young politicians who think they know everything. Jasmine heard it. The co-hosts noticed, but no one said anything. Not yet. The audience clapped politely as the segment began, unaware of the tension simmering just beneath the surface. It wouldn't take long before that tension exploded. And when it did, the quiet studio would turn into the site of a televised showdown. Not of volume, but of intellect. Not of fame, but of facts. Because Rosie O'Donnell didn't realize what kind of woman she was sitting across from. And what happened next would be talked about for years. The segment started off normal. Jasmine Crockett was doing exactly what she came to do, breaking down her new criminal justice reform bill in simple terms. She wasn't speaking in complicated language. She wasn't grandstanding. She was explaining the law in a way that regular people could understand. Her tone was clear and focused. She spoke about sentencing disparities, fair rehabilitation programs, and why accountability for judges mattered. It was real policy talk, and even those in the audience who didn't know much about law could follow what she was saying. But then Rosie interrupted. She didn't jump in with a question or a follow-up. She waved her hand in the air like she was swatting away a fly and said something like, "Hold on, do you really think the average person understands what you're saying with all these legal terms?" It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. Like Jasmine was speaking over everyone's head. Like she needed to come back down to earth. The tone was dismissive. Not challenging. Not curious. Just rude. Then Rosie added, almost with a smirk, "You're still pretty new to all this politics stuff, right?" She said it like someone older speaking to a child. Not because Jasmine had done anything wrong, but because Rosie clearly didn't expect to be matched in that room, especially not by someone who didn't raise her voice or brag. You could see the shift right there. Some people in the audience sat up straighter. A few of the co-hosts looked down at the table. One of them pressed their lips together like they were trying not to react. The energy had changed. Everyone could feel it. Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't even raise her voice. She just replied, calmly and with perfect control, "I've been practicing law for over 15 years. I've served in the Texas legislature. I currently sit on the House Judiciary Committee. So yes, I'm fairly confident I understand the legal concepts." She delivered it like a fact, not a defense. But Rosie wasn't done. In fact, her face tightened as if the calm answer made her even more annoyed. That's when Rosie leaned back in her chair and threw out the line that would end up haunting her. "I've been in this business longer than you've been alive," she said with a forced chuckle. But Jasmine didn't let that slide. Without missing a beat, she replied, "Actually, I'm 42 years old, and you started your show in the late 80s, right? So, not exactly." There was a small laugh from the crowd. Not mocking, but amused. Because the correction was gentle but sharp. Rosie didn't smile. Her jaw tensed. And that's when she decided to take it personal. She looked straight at Jasmine and said, "Sweetie, I'm not sure you understand the complexity of what we're discussing here." The word sweetie hit like a slap across the table. She didn't stop there. She continued, "Maybe you should stick to what you know, whatever that is." And just like that, she stepped way over the line. The studio went silent. Not quiet silent. No one moved. No one spoke. It was the kind of silence that made your skin prickle. The air felt heavy. Even those watching at home could probably feel it through the screen. Everyone knew what just happened. Rosie didn't just challenge Jasmine's ideas. She insulted her intelligence, dismissed her education, tried to shrink her down with a fake smile and a careless voice. Whoopi turned her head and stared at Rosie, not with shock but with disbelief. Like even she couldn't believe someone had gone there, on national television, in front of millions. Sunny looked completely frozen. Joy's mouth dropped open. Sarah, who usually tried to keep things light, was looking away like she didn't want to be part of what was happening. Even backstage, the people working behind the scenes noticed. Producers were whispering. One camera operator reportedly shook his head slowly, like he already knew they'd be talking about this clip for days. The tension was everywhere, and through all of it, Jasmine didn't say a word. She didn't jump to defend herself. She didn't rush to answer. She just sat, still, calm, watching. 3 seconds passed, maybe 4, but those seconds felt long, like the seconds before a storm hits. She wasn't staying quiet because she didn't know what to say. She was staying quiet because she was deciding how to say it. Rosie, on the other hand, thought she had one. She leaned back like she had made her point, like her words had landed. What she didn't realize is that she had just handed Jasmine Crockett everything she needed, because that silence wasn't hesitation, it was calculation. Jasmine didn't rush. She waited, sitting with her hands calmly folded, voice still soft. Then she leaned forward slightly and asked Rosie one simple question. "Did I hear you correctly just now? Did you say I don't understand the complexity of the topic we're discussing?" Her tone wasn't angry. It wasn't sarcastic. It was even steady, like she was clarifying something small. Rosie didn't hesitate. She nodded, proud of what she had said, as if she had just made a point no one could argue. Jasmine gave a small smile in return. That smile wasn't for show. It wasn't forced. It was the kind of smile that said, "All right, let's do this." What happened next didn't feel like an argument. It felt like watching someone slowly and carefully unpack a full case file, one piece of proof at a time. Jasmine began by laying out who she was, not to brag, but to make sure there was no confusion. She shared how she graduated with honors from Rhodes College, how she earned her law degree from Harvard. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't look away from Rosie. She spoke as if she was reading a list of plain facts. She talked about her time as a public defender he has spent in courtrooms defending people who couldn't afford legal help. She talked about the cases she argued, the reforms she helped push through, and how she now serves on the House Judiciary Committee, where she questions FBI directors, attorneys general, and legal scholars. The studio was dead silent. Even the smallest sounds, camera adjustments, a cough from the audience, a chair shifting felt loud against the weight of what she was saying. Rosie didn't speak. She didn't smirk. Her face started to tighten. She looked like she was waiting for a pause to jump in, but Jasmine wasn't going to give her one. Instead, Jasmine turned the spotlight back around. She asked Rosie directly, "Now that you've questioned my understanding of law and policy, can you tell me what is your background in criminal justice or constitutional law?" It wasn't meant to be a trap. It was a genuine question. But the answer was obvious to everyone in the room. Rosie didn't have one, and Jasmine knew it. She didn't wait for Rosie to fumble through a response. She kept going. Jasmine reached down and pulled out a few printed pages. She didn't wave them. She didn't hold them up dramatically. She just held them gently and started reading. 3 weeks ago, Rosie had tweeted that the Supreme Court had 12 justices. It actually has 9. 2 months ago, Rosie had claimed impeachment required a unanimous Senate vote. That's wrong, it only requires a 2/3 majority. And just last month, Rosie had posted that the Constitution was written in 1796, was actually written in 1787. None of these were opinions. These weren't just mistakes. These were basic facts about the legal system that Rosie had gotten wronged on public platforms multiple times. Jasmine read each one clearly, letting the room take in the weight of each correction. There was no meanness in her tone, no yelling, just clean, sharp truth. Rosie tried to speak. Her mouth opened slightly, but Jasmine wasn't done. She moved on to what Rosie did have expertise in: hosting a daytime talk show, acting in a few movies, tweeting strong political opinions without backing them up. That's not experience in law or policy, Jasmine said calmly. That's just having a microphone. By now, Rosie looked stunned. Her expression had shifted from smug to defensive. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't leaning back in her chair. She was sitting stiff, eyes blinking, unsure of what to say. Next. And then came the line, the one that would be replayed over and over. The one that would end the argument completely. Jasmine looked straight at her and said, "Next time you want to question someone's intelligence, make sure you're qualified to have that conversation." It was like the whole room exhaled at once. The silence was shattered by applause. Loud, sudden, real. The audience stood up. Some of the crew behind the cameras started clapping too. The co-hosts, who had been frozen during the exchange, were wide-eyed. Whoopi leaned back in her chair with a look that said, "Damn." Sunny was nodding slowly, as if she had just watched a complete masterclass. Joy Behar's eyebrows were high, her mouth still half open. Rosie, she had nothing. No words, no comeback. She had walked into that room, thinking her years of television would give her the upper hand. She thought loud opinions and quick insults would work like they always had. But Jasmine Crockett didn't play that game. She came with facts. She came with calm. She came prepared. And Rosie, she had just been completely outmatched. As soon as the cameras stopped rolling, Rosie stood up and walked off the set without a word. She didn't try to explain, didn't look back, didn't return for the rest of the show. The producers were left stunned. This wasn't just an awkward moment. They knew something big had just happened. Backstage, staff were whispering, some still trying to process what they'd witnessed. But outside that studio, the reaction was already building fast. Within minutes, clips of Jasmine's calm takedown started hitting social media. Twitter lit up with the hashtag Jasmine destroys Rosie. TikTok videos popped up with subtitles and reaction faces. YouTube channels began uploading side-by-side breakdowns. The clip spread like wildfire, and by the end of the day, millions had already seen it. News outlets couldn't ignore it. CNN ran a headline calling it one of the most unexpected political moments of the year. Fox News played the full exchange, praising Jasmine's clarity and calm under pressure. Even the BBC covered it, describing it as a rare case, where a politician completely outclassed a celebrity opponent in real time. MSNBC tried to stay quiet at first, but after the online backlash, they had to cover the story too. Commentators across the board, whether liberal or conservative, agreed on one thing. Jasmine Crockett had handled herself like a pro. She didn't just defend her name. She showed the country how facts beat noise. Rosie tried to do damage control. She tweeted about how it was just a spirited discussion, and that passion got the better of her. But the replies were brutal. Screenshots of her past political mistakes were reposted everywhere. People called her out for arrogance and disrespect. The tweets didn't last long. Within 2 hours, she deleted them. But by then, it was too late. The internet doesn't forget, and neither did the public. While Rosie's presence started to fade, Jasmine's star began to rise. Her office reported a flood of new calls and emails, not just from supporters, but from lawmakers who wanted to co-sponsor her criminal justice bill. Colleges reached out, inviting her to speak. Law conferences wanted her on panels. Publishers were asking about books. Cable networks were calling about contracts. She had walked into that studio as a rising political voice. She walked out a national figure. Meanwhile, Rosie's bookings quietly disappeared. A few scheduled appearances were pulled. Event organizers didn't want the attention. Some shows that had planned to bring her on decided to pass. It wasn't loud. No big announcements. Just doors, slowly, silently closing. What Jasmine said and how she said it left a mark far beyond that one episode. Law professors began using the clip in class. Advocacy groups shared it during media training, teaching professionals how to stay composed under pressure. Meme pages turned "Don't get Crocketted" into a phrase. It meant, don't walk into a debate unprepared. Don't mistake confidence for expertise. And don't challenge someone who's done the work, unless you've done yours to. In Congress. Jasmine didn't change her tone. She didn't act like a viral star. She kept working. And a few months later, when her criminal justice bill finally passed in the House, she stood to speak. With a small smile, she said, "To those who questioned whether I understand these complex issues, I Hope today's vote clears that up. The room chuckled, then applauded. From both sides, it wasn't loud anger or flashy insults that won the day. It was calm, preparation, and knowing your facts. Rosie tried to play the part of the seasoned voice, but Jasmine showed what real leadership looks like. And in the end, she didn't just win a debate. She set a new standard. Sometimes, the quietest speaker is the one who leaves the deepest impact.